This is Dr. Diane of Dr. Diane's Adventures in Learning, and today's podcast celebrates the life of somebody very important to me. Today, July 7th, 2026, would have been the 84th birthday of my father, Dr. Edward John Jackson. But instead, it's the day that we're going to lay him to rest with military honors next to my mother at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Over the last few months, I recorded a number of interviews with my dad, collecting stories. I want to share a few of them with you today because Dr. Ed was the epitome of what we celebrate on the podcast. He was curious, full of wonder, eager to play and learn right up to the end. He taught me to love travel, to seek community, to offer service, and to lead with empathy and hope. He was the keeper of bad puns, my champion and friend, and my inspiration in education. Just one example, and then I'll let him speak for himself. At Fayetteville Technical Community College in the 1980s, my dad helped shape SOCAD, using his own hard-won experience to create a better, more realistic path for service members trying to complete their degrees amid the demands of military life and raising a family. He worked directly with the Department of Education and with college leaders to tear down rigid residency requirements and streamline credit transfer so the coursework would follow a soldier wherever duty called. What began as a result of his own personal uphill climb became a program that made the academic path smoother for generations of service members. That's the kind of guy Dr. Edward Jackson was. I hope you'll enjoy getting to know my dad a little bit better today. Wonder, curiosity, connection. Where will your adventures take you? I'm Dr. Diane, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of Adventures in Learning. Start by telling me about Pamela the chimpanzee.
If you remember.
Where were you working?
Back in 57, 58, for a summer job, Jerry Eastman and I were able to handle the cleanup area for George Essenberg and at the old Heidelberg, the old stone barn. And we were there working, cutting grass and stuff like that. And then he got ready to open. We swing the back of a pickup truck with a 2x12 across the back bed and a sledgehammer in a hand and swinging at 4-inch poles to drive them down in and missed.
Oh, no.
It just took you. It was a flip right over the end of the truck. But we got done, and Jerry was Pat's age. And I, of course, being the younger one, it was funny because George says, "Yeah, I can only use one of you." He says, "I want you. You look older."
Even though you were younger by 2 years.
Yeah. So I went in to stay as the night person, late day and tender of the Stone Barn Enterprise. And George had set it on up where he had exotic animals in there. Had a couple of horses and peacocks and psyche deer, Japanese psyches, and he had a bobcat in there, and weasels and a couple other things. And then there was Pamela. And Pamela was just there. There was a chimpanzee, and she was about 3 years old. But she used to go around while I was doing checks of the place and sit on my shoulder and had her on a leash when we were going through.
How big was Pamela?
Standing on the ground about that high.
So like up to my mid-thigh.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining that on your shoulder.
It was about 30 pounds.
Like carrying a toddler.
Plus she had a tail on her that was about that long, about 2.5 feet long.
So did she know who you were? Like when you came in,
yeah.
She knew exactly who you were?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were compadres over there. She knew who I was, and that we were going to go check things out. And she'd go around and talk to the other animals, and I'd bring her around and show her to people. And, of course, she was a big show-off, so she'd get her time in. But finally put her back to bed. She was okay. But we had a lot of fun with it.
You told me that there was a time when she didn't like something you were doing?
Oh, yeah, she bit me. She sat there. She didn't want to go someplace by the barn. And I said, come on, let's go. And she reached over and she put her teeth right on my hand. Didn't bite me, just put them on there. I said, you don't want to do that. And she looked at me and gave me one of those sheepish grins and let go. But
Now, when did you know or how did you know you wanted to go into the Army?
when I moved to North Bay, all I wanted is to get out of there, and I didn't give a damn how I did it.
You wanted to see the world and do something different than that.
Well, I say I'm a teenager being raised. I didn't have a father. He was always on the road. And whether he was fraternizing or otherwise, I don't know.
Right.
My mother was an alcoholic. I couldn't talk to her. I had nobody there to assist me with lessons or guide me.
Right. And Aunt Cindy had gotten married because
Yeah.
she was 10 years older than you.
Yeah, because she got married in 52, and we're talking 56. And then she was down in Maracaibo, and I went down for the summer, paying half of my stuff for 7 weeks down there in Maracaibo.
How old were you when you went to Maracaibo?
16.
That had to have been a really cool trip for you. I mean, to be 16 and go to Venezuela
Yeah, and then come back
and have to
with
come back
Sherry
north.
with a 3-year-old.
So you brought the baby back.
Yeah. And of course, in those days, you didn't travel with your underwear hanging out like you do today. You had to wear coat and tie and long gloves if you were a woman, to ride the plane. And there wasn't a jet. These were all props. So when you got on that sucker in New York, you were on it for the duration. It was a long trip down. But I had a lot of good times down there in Venezuela. Learned a lot.
So you were staying with Cindy and Bob.
Yeah.
And what kinds of things did you do in Venezuela that summer?
Oh, we used to travel around. He had an old Porsche with a Volkswagen engine in it, a 2-seater. And he used to drive that around down there. And I used to, when I was down there, they had several U.S. Places to live,
Yeah.
where they had compounds, communities. And had this one kid I met down there where his dad works for Richmond. And he showed me the ropes down there, and we got going around. And I didn't speak a bit of Spanish, still don't. But I could get into a Medio cab, which is like a 10-cent cab.
Uh-huh.
And they have bus route type things, where they're going. I could get all over Maracaibo and back. And we used to go down and slip into the fire escape, change our clothes there into our bathing suits, go up to the 6th floor, work our way back into the thing and go back down and go to the pool.
In the fancy place.
And the Hotel del Lago, which was the best hotel in Maracaibo. So,
no kid pools for you.
and of course, then also they have what they call a free market down there. Oh, God, you talk about being sick.
What was the free market?
Well, it's where everybody brought their goods and their food.
Like a farmer's market?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you get down and they brought fresh meat, when it was laying without refrigeration out on tables, and you walk down near it, and you'd be walking in that much blood, 2 inches of blood on the ground, and splish splash, you're taking a bath here.
So then you needed the hotel pool.
But that was a lot of fun when we were there.
It sounds fun. Now, you joined the Army when you were 18.
Yeah.
And you somehow went from being enlisted to being an officer. And that was hard to do, especially without a college degree. How did you pull that off?
Very difficult. It was Vietnam was probably one of the catalysts that got it, because they needed people to go over there. I had finished my 3-year tour, and it was either get accepted to OCS or get out. And I got my acceptance to Officers Candidate School in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I re-enlisted for 6 years because I didn't have enough time to finish the school without re-enlisted. And I did it for 6 years as an incentive. There ain't no way I'm going to be. So 6 months later, I was discharged as an enlisted man, as a sergeant, and reinstated as a 2nd lieutenant.
And this is before you met Mom.
Oh, yeah. Because then I went from there to Fort Benning, Georgia, went through jump school there, then over to bomb holder, and that's when I met your mom.
Well, and mom was ahead of her time. I mean, I think about the fact that you guys met in Germany where you were stationed as an officer and she was teaching for the Department of Defense. And that's not something that your average woman did in the mid-60s.
No, that when they went out through, and she had a lot of fun with it when she was doing it.
Now, you told me that she had
She loved to travel too.
She got to travel because you had security clearance and you couldn't get away because the Russians would have wanted you because you knew stuff about the nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So where did she go while you were stuck at home?
Oh, she'd gone to places like Morocco. She got to East Berlin. There's no way in Hades I couldn't even go to West Berlin, much less East. When it went on through, and was able to go through some of them. She got to Ireland and England, and I just couldn't get the time off to be able to do that. But she also, when she went to Ireland, she kissed the Blarney Stone in the ceremony type, that they have. So.
Yeah. Now, how did you two meet?
At the Officers Club.
And she lived in the barracks up the hill?
Your barracks were like tiered on different levels, as you went on up sort of a hill on there, the road going around. And hers was about 150 yards away from mine at the next level up. So you get right straight back up and forth down there. So, but as I said, we met at the Officers Club and eventually started dating a little bit. And then it came time to, all of a sudden on a Friday in June, they said, you got orders. You got to take over the basic training company at Fort Campbell next week. You got to leave Monday morning for the States. And I said, geez, so I couldn't get packed up. She and the adjutant, the battalion adjutant, packed all my stuff up and shipped it to me. And then she followed it on in, and she made sure she got a hold of me.
She chased you down. So if mom hadn't followed you to...
I'd be in trouble today.
Fort Campbell, is that where you were?
Yeah.
So Kentucky.
No, that was in... no, that was Fort Campbell. Because there was a basic training company at Fort Campbell.
So she followed you to Fort Campbell, Kentucky to make sure you closed the deal.
Yeah. When she set up the wedding on the phone with my mother, and we did December because that's when I could get the time off. We knew that. And, they didn't have a pot to piss in at the time. But boy, she knew how to manage everything on there for it. So it worked out.
Now, I know from the time before you got into being married with mom and stuff like that, you served in Korea. You were in Oklahoma at one point. You had told me a story about going to a club.
Oh, but that was when I was enlisted. When I joined the Army, I went through artillery, basic tube artillery school. And then they sent me to the Honest John, 8-inch Honest John nuclear assembly course. And then shipped me over to the 20th Artillery in Korea at Mickey Mouse Corners in Papua. And I was stationed over there theoretically for a 13-month tour. But because of the war, I ended up having to spend 16 months over there when it was on. I got back from there and went to Fort Benning, Georgia. And I was down at Fort Benning, and we were setting up to go on a field trip. There we were having a scrimmage with another division in North and South Carolina. And it was while I was just getting ready to load up that I got notification from the lieutenant that I'd been accepted to OCS and I had to go. So went back and packed everything up. And they said then that's when I did my enlistment, re-enlistment, so that I'd have new uniforms and things that I could, for school when I got there. I went through 6 months of that at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And when I was in Oklahoma going through the course there, again, I went through the company commander, company grade advanced course. And that's almost a year and 9 months on it. And from there, I went to Germany. Well, part of my course, they sent me to school again for 4 or 5 weeks for Pershing missile, which was in Europe. Those were the nuclear missiles we had, a battery over there. And I ended up being company commander, battery commander for a Pershing battery, you had 9 missiles, 3 platoons, 3 missiles each platoon. And I mean, you put them out in different locations, quite a bit of difference. I had a helicopter that was always available to me, but you take those missiles and with the nuclear warheads, and that was during the Cuban crisis, and we were on T-10 and hold for a couple of weeks.
That had to be scary.
It wasn't exactly exciting, believe me. You're just sitting there like that, but I learned, and that's when you erected my Pershing missile over there.
That was in the 70s, yeah. That was not a Cuban Missile Crisis because I'm not that old.
No, that was beforehand. That was yeah. So,
the story I was thinking, though, that I remember you telling me, there was a gentleman who was your friend who was African American, and you guys were trying to go out together. And
Reed, he was the S3 of when I was in OCS back in Oklahoma, and he was about the S3 of the battalion, the student S3, and he was black.
And that's a sergeant, right, in S3?
No, that's a division of that's your operations office. He was the operations officer.
Okay.
For the school battalion.
Okay.
So, what we did, and we got down there in Lawton, and I'm gonna go get a drink. Went over to one of the bars. Says, you can go in, but he can't because they had the segregation. And I didn't realize that. And I'd never experienced it. He says, well, come on, we can go over to mine. So I went over to a black restaurant with him and had a lot of fun drinking and being with the black population and talking. We had a lot of fun with that. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you lived through desegregation in the Army. You lived through the introduction of women in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Well, when I came back on my last tour in 75 to 80, I was in my alternate MOS of logistics management, and I was signed to the 407th Supply and Service Battalion as the XO. And when I was there over the time is when they started to filter females in the Army. Well, the 82nd never heard of having a female in the Army. Well, I took the first 6, and I had them down in the pack shed where we packed parachutes, because we packed for the entire division, 13,000 chutes. I keep up with them, when it goes through. But these girls were tough. They were smart, and they had their directions in which they wanted to go, and I was willing to follow them or push them along. I had 2 lieutenants that worked for me too, Pratt and I can't think of the young girl's name. They became my S1 officers and assistant S4, I think, is what it went. But
well, in so many ways, you were an early feminist, but you couldn't help it. I mean, you were surrounded by Mom and us.
It goes through, but equal rights is something that I've always supported.
I know. I remember.
Oh, and then she made sure, kept me going with the education and getting classes after school. So eventually, when I retired in October of 80, I had gotten my bachelor's degree in August of 80 and went straight on into graduate school and had no idea what I was going to do after leaving the Army. Well, one of my internships was teaching, which I was scared to death of, and I taught 7th and 8th grade for Don Orr at Irwin Middle School at Fort Bragg, substitute teaching for him. And I got to like it a little bit. And then I was also an intern with Fayetteville Tech and that's when I became hired on as the director of the off-campus program. When I started at Fort Knox with them, I had 57 students and 3 part-time instructors. And when I retired, well, when I came down, I'm going to say when I became dean, I had 5,000 students at different locations. And it was during that time also that I got to meet Dr. Arden Pratt, Department of Education in D.C. And I worked with him and University of Maryland and other schools to consolidate and formulate the Associate Degree Servicemen's Opportunity College program, which guaranteed between at least those schools and we got, because we were in it, everybody else wanted to join then, but we tailored our courses designed so that they were similar. Because when I was going through at night courses, you take a course in Germany in English, and it was the same number to take it in the United States, but they say, oh, it doesn't match, you can't do it, you got to take another class. And this went on, and where you'd have all these repetitive classes. And so as a result, with the SOCAD program, you had your equivalency, the transfer, where you could transfer it to, where you would get it to get your next portion of your degree. And it really worked out well.
Well, and that became a nationwide template,
That's
right?
a worldwide.
Worldwide now. So you were helpful in creating something that could be used not just for the military, but across the board to make sure that things
it's
can
still
transfer.
Used today. And they turned it into the bachelor program. This is funny about one other thing I just flashed into my mind was distance learning.
Right.
Randy Anderson, Colonel Anderson.
Yeah, I remember Terry's dad.
Yeah, and when he found out, I told him, I said, I'm going to go ahead and start distance learning, going that way. Without a classroom? They're not going to face you? They'll cheat. No, they won't.
Well, now
look at today.
We do it all the time. I mean, that's part of what I'm working on with Shenandoah right now is this whole distance learning concept. That's crazy.
So, but yeah, we funded that thing there. It came out where, by doing so, yes, we got the notoriety as it went down through, and I was very proud of what happened with it because of the fact that I'd been suffering through it for 20 years, trying to get a degree.
Right. It took you a long time because of that, I would imagine.
Yeah. So.
Because you were never in one place long enough to be able to take all the courses.
Yeah, and every time you transferred, you didn't know how many classes were going to transfer. So, but.
Yeah, I remember some of that time. Like, I do remember you taking classes, and I remember you teaching at Irwin, and I remember Mom typing your dissertation.
And 5 others.
And 5 other people's dissertations. I remember you defending it in Miami.
That was at a keyboard. It wasn't a computer.
It was a typewriter.
It was a typewriter. And I had a session I had to go with down at Nova Southwestern, where I was doing my doctorate.
Right.
And I had to go for the summer for several weeks, so we went down there.
In Miami.
Yeah.
Because I remember being down there. I remember there was a Saks Fifth Avenue across the street from the hotel.
Yeah.
And there was a Marine land. And I mean, I remember Mom was keeping us entertained and occupied while you were doing your classwork stuff.
Yeah, we had that. And then I got the degree. I said, ooh.
Well, and you made a huge difference at Fayetteville Tech. I mean, not just with the off-campus program and the, kind of streamlined curriculum that everybody did, but.
Well, I have many friends from there today and overseeing and putting the departments together and starting new programs down there. I mean, Fayetteville Tech, for one, was Fayetteville Technical Institute, FTI.
Yep, I remember that.
Then it changed over with Fayetteville Technical Community College. But the thing of it is, they never really had a general education program. And I got that and designed it and incorporated so that you get one in Associate of Arts or Associate of Science, when you're going through. And it really made a difference on drawing people on in to add to their other degrees.
Right. Well, it broadened what they offered and broadened the audience, I would think.
Yeah, much so. And then we had, I used to refer to the school as the womb to the tomb because you had your nursing program over there, and then you had your funeral service program. So you born them over here, and you put them underground over here. So, but it was one of the funeral service. It was one of 29 certified schools programs in the United States.
Well, and you were sitting on all kinds of like funeral service boards for a while, if I remember
Yeah,
right.
I was on national and U.S. and international boards.
Wow.
And matter of fact, I was on the national when your mother in 2010 got cancer, and I had to resign my position from there because we spent more time in the hospital than with her infusion.
Yeah.
And a morning shot to her stomach every morning.
I remember that. Wow.
Uh,
Well, and you started the theater program at Fayetteville Tech.
Yeah, with Lee Opp. Brought him on in and started that part of my fine arts when we had performing arts, and started off showing programs down there because Fort Bragg closed the playhouse up there and tore it down.
It still hurts my heart every time I drive by there.
And so down in our little 350-seat auditorium with Lee, in his mind, it was so articulate, put on major programs down there, which were fantastic. And we weren't charging. Then we started charging them. They were still coming in multiple times and filling on up seat and every seat for, so it worked out well.
And you probably gave him a couple extra years of life too, because I know his heart broke when the Playhouse closed.
Yeah, Trudy cornered me and asked, is there something he can do? And I hemmed and hawed around and tried to think about it. And I said, yeah.
Why not?
So,
I remember as a little girl that you were even though you were always traveling, like especially in the early years with the military and stuff, you were also in many ways in my head ever present. That you played with me, we did hikes, you were making beautiful art. In my mind, it was beautiful. I loved the giant Santa Clauses and the cardboard box sleighs and the puppet theaters.
the vampires in the garage at Thanksgiving or Halloween.
Yes. So you gave me play. Like I definitely remember playing. And I wonder, I was thinking about this. I'm like, you were very different than I remember Grandpa being. And I think Mom was very different than her mother was.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys talk about that, or did that just naturally happen as parents, that you were different than your parents? Because you were good parents.
We knew what we never got, and we were not going to pass it on.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for dealing with that.
Because, you miss out on so much, as did your mother and I, both. And because she was always having to babysit Bill and Robert and do this and do that, and do this and do that. She was always, hey, you. So.
What were the most fun things then about having kids? What are the things you remember that you enjoyed doing with us?
Family, riding, doing anything. When Dad had that 26-foot cabin cruiser, and I bought it from him for $2,500 for the trailer. That was before we went to Germany. And we used to go down on that on weekends in Barron Reservoir. And Muffins used to go with us, the dog. And I used to carry a 6-foot stepladder on the back deck. And we'd go out on the reservoir, and there'd be islands, little sand islands out there. So I'd go out and I'd throw the anchor out the rear and then nudge the bow up on the sand and tie it off up there, and then use the ladder to get up and down onto the island. And Muffins would get down there on the island, and she had to run around space free for her, and she'd chase the ducks, and they'd go out swimming in the water, and she'd swim after them, and I'd get tired and turn around and come back, and the ducks would come right behind her. They played this game all the time, and because of you, couldn't put you in the bed down there because you'd roll over and fall out. So you made your bed on the deck in the cabin so that you couldn't fall anyplace when it went through. And your mother and I had cots that we kept under the deck up topside and put them out and zippered in the canvas part over the back end of the boat. And that's where we used to sleep. Actually, we had our own head and small galley on the boat, so you could cook and you could go to the bathroom.
Nice.
you had all that there. So, and we could just run up and down Barron Reservoir, which is about 50 miles long, and go like that, and had a lot of fun with it. So, and then of course there was our friendly little puppet house where we did with we do hand puppets. It started out, I think, be honest with you, I think it all started when I was doing Count Dracula in the garage, and we put puppets through a sheet that we had hanging there, and that would be what we would use for the hand on there. And you saw, the puppet boxes, people had on TV and that at that time.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and listened to your mother, and I made it, painted it with multicolor, and as you know, it's still in use today.
Discovery Museum, it celebrated its 30th anniversary this past weekend, and I think like 100,000 kids well, if I do my math correctly, if they have 50,000 kids every year, and most of them play with it based on what I've seen, and it's been there for probably the last 10 years since the girls outgrew it.
Yeah.
That's like
at least 10 years.
That's like 500,000 kids who have played with the
I've been here for 10 years.
Well, and that's when I gave it to them, was about that point. They've promised I get it back someday, but they still are using it. And I think probably 500,000 kids have played with it in that time. That's incredible.
There's a lot of fun with it, so they enjoyed that.
But you made puppet theaters for us when we were kids, using the...
Oh, yeah. We used to do that all the time.
And forts. Like, I remember we would make blanket forts. Yep. And that bed, and you actually still have it, I think, in the attic. The
tom bed.
The tom bed that was made out of the... foam rubber. But I remember that before that was Tom's bed, that would often be used as rafts or...
Yeah.
We would turn it on its side.
You had two of them, so you had the two bases and the two tops, and then the four cushions. And you could do all kinds of readjusting on those.
Who came up with the I'm Captain Hook, I'm looking for Peter Pan game that we would play in hotel pools across Europe?
Oh, that was from television from someplace.
What we saw the movie Peter Pan.
Yeah. And that's where I picked it up from watching Peter Pan. And then we decided, chase you around the pool. I'm Captain Hook, I'm looking for Peter Pan.
You were so good at that. I mean, I remember you got me swimming fast. I was trying to avoid that crocodile.
So when it goes through, we had a lot of fun with it. So.
And we did a lot of Volksmarches.
Oh, Sunday was it. You take the dog when we go up on a Volksmarch, and you finish up in a cafe for ice cream, sodas, coffee, whatever. And the dog would be right with you, laying on the floor inside the cafe, because that was legal. And by closing the roads off, you didn't have to walk worrying about getting hit by cars. It was really a lot of fun and very enjoyable.
When did you start teaching Sunday school? Was that when I started going?
Down at Fort Knox, Colonel Daly was my battalion commander.
And we met Colonel Daly again later at Fort Bragg.
Right.
Because he was back there, because I remember him from that.
When I was there, got started with because I was afraid to get in front of a group.
Right.
Because, to be honest with you, because of my father and my brother.
You were intimidated.
Yeah, I was ridiculed.
Right.
Rather than helping, it just irritated the crap out of me. So I was afraid to get up in front of groups and speak. And he got me to come up and co-teach lecture with him. And that's when I started with that, and then became a Eucharistic minister and a lector, and then teaching Sunday school because you were in it. That's what I was teaching. Yes, it was.
Because I remember very clearly the classes you taught when Tommy and I were in class together.
Yep.
Because Tom was always a character.
Still is.
But I remember, and I actually was talking about this recently with, maybe it was Father Ed at our new church. I can still remember the videos. I remember the videos that you would actually have on the big canisters that you would...
Oh, yeah.
run through. I saw the cartoon version of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when you were teaching. Like, I remember that really clearly because I fell in love with Narnia. But my whole vision of the Trinity and the idea that God is not gender-based came from this one video that you showed that was such a 1970s, 80s kind of thing, I think, where it was Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but the Holy Ghost was a Black woman who looked like Cynthia Erivo from Wicked. And she has been my idea in my brain of God to this day.
Well,
And I'm like, you were ahead of your time in what you shared with us.
well, it's just like when I was over there teaching, one of the classes I had was on the Trinity, and I had to go to the field. And your mother taught it for me.
My mother, who was not
It
Catholic.
was not Catholic. And as a result, we were talking about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, 3 persons in one. And she said, as an analogy to put it together, think of steam, water, and ice. It's the same person in 3 different
The
forms.
states of matter. That's a good analogy.
So,
I hope you've enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about the life of my father, Dr. Edward John Jackson. Dr. J was a quiet hero who selflessly and effectively gave of his time to support many community organizations and causes. He performed on stage and he ushered for many years at the Cape Fear Regional Theater, Spring Lake Little Theater, and Fort Bragg Playhouse. My dad was a strong supporter of the Cumberland County Library, the Arts Council of Fayetteville, and the United Way. And for years, he was an officer and strong supporter of the Kiwanis Club of Fayetteville, so much so that he continued to attend Friday meetings on Zoom long after he moved to Texas. Dad was an adventurer who checked all 50 states off his list before my mom passed. And later he traveled with us to Antarctica, to New Zealand, to Australia, the Great Lakes region, and the Galapagos Islands, always curious and always learning. Just a month before he died, he managed one final trip to Alaska to see the whales and the glaciers he loved so much. He's missed so much by his family, but I'm so happy to share a little bit of his adventures in learning with you. You've been listening to the Adventures in Learning podcast with your host, Dr. Diane. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, download, and let us know what you think, and please tell a friend. If you want the full show notes and the pictures, please go to drdianeadventures.com. We look forward to you joining us on our next adventure.